Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. Hello and welcome back to Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. I'm your host, Big Les. Welcome to part 3 of the Rookie Watch. So pumped for you guys to hear all the rookies that you need to be watching in 2024, particularly going into the trials, which is going to be happening over the next few days. I think the trials, they kick off on the 15th, I'm pretty sure, of Feb, so not too long at all now. Keen to get some rugby league back into my life, the All-Stars games as well. Hopefully they pick some really solid teams for the All-Stars games, something that's really entertaining. Getting all the stars in that side, it'd be really good to watch just to get that taste of rugby league, pure best quality rugby league back. I cannot wait. But we are going to be going through some rookies today. We're going to be going through the rookies for the Roosters. We've got about 5 for the Roosters. For the Raiders, we have got 7 rookies for the Raiders, which is the most out of any team. And then 4 for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So we are stacked for this episode in terms of rookies. Let's get straight into it for the Sydney Roosters. The first guy that I want you to all be watching is Junior Pauga. Obviously played a few games in 2023, filling in for an injured Daniel Tupou, who was injured throughout the entire season in little stints with little lingering injuries throughout the year. Junior Pauga definitely came in and did an outstanding job while Daniel Tupou was out. He's one of the guys that I'll be watching for sure going into this year, depending if there's injuries around the back line. They've also got another guy sitting in reserve grade who we'll talk about right at the end. But, Pauga, especially if there's an injury on the wing, he'll be definitely someone that Trent Robertson considers. He's an absolute freak. Someone that should be playing first grade as well. Club should be definitely knocking on Junior Pauga's door because he is an absolute legend and an absolute weapon as well. In rugby league. I cannot wait to see if he gets any cracks in first grade, depending on what Madge does as well with New South Wales Blues. If Daniel Tupou's in red hot form, he gets picked for Origin, which is definitely a possibility. We've seen it happen only 2 years ago. Pauga could get a crack in the back line, but we'll have to wait and see. He might even get a crack in the side. When Tedesco goes to Origin, he might get chucked on the wing. Someone might get moved into the centres. We'll have to see what happens, but Pauga, definitely someone that we'll be watching going into this year. Now, another guy that you got to watch was in the Kiwis squad as well at the end of last year, Nafa'u White. They're obviously looking for a really tough forward pack coming off the bench. There's going to be a lot of first graders missing out, and I feel like he'll be one of those. He'll be definitely starting the year in New South Wales Cup for me, but someone that I could definitely see with a big ceiling that he's got, working his way into this 17. What is a very stacked 17, I grant it, but he'll definitely be pushing for a spot in the 17 for sure. A really solid front rower with a lot of upside, a great offloading game as well. Still very raw, but I feel like he could definitely earn a spot in the Roosters 17. Nafa'u White, definitely one to watch. He was definitely in and around there last season. Keen to see if him have a few more games in 2024. Especially if Spencer Leniu gets a crack in the Origin arena, if Angus Crichton gets back into his form and potentially gets a spot in the squad. There's a few guys in the forwards that could be eligible for Origin. Obviously got Lindsay Collins as well. There's definitely going to be a chance for him to get a spot in the 17. I'm keen to see him work for it, though, because I feel like he's going to be one of the better forwards that misses out on a spot in this 17 if he does miss out throughout the year. Robert Toya, who's a centre in the lower grades. He got a crack at some point last year. I don't remember if it was the midpoint of the year or the end of the year, but he definitely got a crack. He was playing really well in the trials as well. He'll be someone to watch. He's fresh off an ACL injury, I'm pretty sure, as well. So won't be back to full kilter straight away, but definitely someone to keep an eye on during the trials. Robert Toya, centre, winger. He can play both of those positions to a pretty high click, really talented backline player coming through. I tell you what, the Roosters, they definitely don't have any issues in the backline in terms of depth. They've pretty much got a whole nother backline that is ready to play first grade, sitting in reserve grade at the moment. So Robert Toya, definitely someone to watch. Another guy that I want you to keep an eye on, he can play in the halves and he can also play a little bit of footy at hooker as well. Tyler Moriarty. obviously playing in the New South Wales Cup side quite a bit in 2023 at halfback. Sandon Smith, I believe, was the 6, or maybe it was the other way around. But Tyler Moriarty could be the future after Luke Keary in terms of guys to come in for him. Obviously, Manu was a big chat in coming in and playing 6. I don't think Manu will do that. I think he'll play fullback for Teddy when Teddy retires. In terms of who comes in for the halves for Luke Keary, though, I think Tyler Moriarty is definitely a shout. Really solid halfback with a lot of upside to his game as well, and playing really good footy in 2023 in New South Wales Cup. Depending on how this Origin selection goes, we might see him get a crack in a 14 jersey at some point during the year. We'll have to wait and see, but definitely someone with a lot of potential, and particularly because Jesse Marschke has now gone over to the Dragons, there's definitely a lot less people in his way for a first grade spot. So Tyler Moriarty, definitely someone to watch. And then Billy Smith, not really a rookie. He's been around for a while, but he is behind both Suwali and Joseph Manu for centre spots. Now, depending on what happens with rugby union, if Suwali does go or not, Billy Smith might be trapped in reserve grade for a long time this year. He probably will have to wait until Origin to get a crack in the centres. Hopefully not. And it's not like me to pray for injury, but I really do hope that at some point during the year, Billy Smith gets an opportunity to work his way back into this team because he definitely doesn't deserve to be sitting in reserve grade. It's so unfair how this has worked out. But that's rugby league. He'll have to be sitting in reserve grade. I'm very surprised that they haven't loaned him off to another club just to get some first grade experience in him. He'll obviously be stuck in New South Wales Cup with the back line that the Roosters have. You think about the Roosters next year, they'll have Tedesco at fullback. They'll have Daniel Tupou and Dom Young on the wings, probably the biggest wing pairing in rugby league. And then you've got Joseph Manu and Joseph Suali'i in the centres. So there really isn't a spot for Billy Smith in this back line, which is so disappointing. Hopefully he does get a crack somewhere in this side because he deserves to be playing first grade after the back end of the year that he had in 2023. So Billy Smith, he will be definitely someone that I'll be looking at in the trials because I imagine he'll be playing in the trials. And then throughout the year, if he does get an opportunity, I hope that he does as well. He'll be definitely someone I'm watching to see if he can work his way back into this team. Could be an awesome, controversial pick in the 17 as well to come off the bench and play a similar role to what Stephen Crichton did at the start of his career when he first debuted, just coming on and playing pretty much anywhere they need him or just as an explosive guy through the middle. Could be a really interesting rotation. But I think they are going to go with Connor Watson at 14 though because they need someone to play hooker for Brandon Smith. Brandon Smith can't play hooker for the full 80 minutes and Victor Radley can't play hooker, period. Victor Radley needs to stay at 13 throughout the entire year. So keen to see how this side looks. They're definitely stacked for talent in this Roosters lineup. We move on to the Canberra Raiders. We've got 7 guys to look out for, so I'll try to get through this as quickly as I possibly can. For the Raiders, the first guy that I'll be watching is Chevy Stewart in the fullback role. Can also play in the centres. He's definitely beefed up quite a bit, so he's ready for first grade, that's for sure. It just depends how Xavier Savage starts the year. Obviously been confirmed to play fullback by all reports and by all rumours. It looks like Xavier Savage will be starting the year at number 1. But if he doesn't work out to start the year, Chevy Stewart is definitely a shout. He's also a shout, Chevy Stewart, for the centres. If Ethan Strange is playing 5'8", like a lot of people think he will be, and KO Weeks does start the year in reserve grade, we could see Chevy Stewart maybe getting a role in the centres as well. He's definitely built up enough for that role, and he did play there in New South Wales Cup for a few games last year, but his best position is fullback, so I hope we get to see him in that role at some point during the year. KO Weeks, again, another guy that I really will be looking at this season. By all reports, he'll be the 5'8", but above Ethan Strange. But he definitely needs to start the year strong because if he doesn't, Ethan Strange will be the 6. The good thing about Ethan Strange is, and a guy that we'll talk about right now too, is that he can play both roles, centre or 5'8". He's got the versatility, which means he's double the chance of making this first grade side. And he's definitely someone that I'll be watching, Ethan Strange. A lot of talent. I prefer him at the moment at centre, but a lot of people rate him at 5'8" too. So I want to see him play 5'8" maybe in the trials just to get a taste of him there before we get a ball kicked for round 1 to start the year officially. KO Weeks, though, he can play a lot of fullback as well. I'm unconvinced as to what KO Weeks is. I'm just convinced he's a footballer. I want to see him make that 5'8" jersey his own, but it'd definitely be an interesting battle between him and Ethan Strange to take the 6 for the future. I know after Jack White obviously left to go to the Rabbitohs. So Ethan Strange, KO Weeks, 2 guys I'll be watching along with Chevy Stewart for those 1 and 6 spots. Now we move on to a winger that I think is a real shot at getting a starting spot post Jordan Rapana, but even with Jordan Rapana in the side, I think that he'll get a spot on the other wing. Albert Hopewade. I was super impressed with his involvement in 2023. I was very shocked for him to miss out on selection a few times in 2023. A lot of upside to him. He can also play a bit of fullback, but wing is where he does his most damage. He's very similar to a Brian To'o in terms of his, yardage as well off a kick, and also his strength and power. I believe he's very similar to how Brian To'o plays his football and got a lot of versatility as well, Albert Hopewade, in the sense that he can play anywhere in the back line. So he'll be one that I'll be watching to take that other wing spot on the left-hand side with Rapana on the right. Albert Hopewade. Huepa Puru is a lock forward that I think everyone needs to keep an eye on if you're a Canberra Raiders supporter especially, but just watching rugby league, a fan of rugby league, needs to keep their eye on Huepa Puru. They've obviously got a very stacked forward pack for the Canberra Raiders at the moment, but you talk about this lock forward race. There's a few guys that come to mind. Corey Horsburgh, Morgan Smithies fresh into the competition as well, who we'll talk about right at the end. But Huepa Puru is someone that I think could be a real smoky to get that 13 jersey as well. If not, I think he'll definitely play a solid role off the bench. His defense is outstanding. Probably one of the better defenders in the forward pack in this squad for the Canberra Raiders. I think he's definitely a shout for a spot in the 17. He'll be unlucky not to get one, but I think he will. Now, a guy that's very versatile as well in this forward pack, when you're looking at this squad with 17 forwards altogether in this squad, out of a 30-man squad, which is absolutely insane. Trey Mooney, and that was obviously not counting hookers as well, but Trey Mooney, I'm really, really excited to see where he fits into this side, whether he's a back rower, whether he's a lock forward, or whether he's a front rower, because he can play all 3 of those positions to a pretty high click. Trey Mooney has been well hyped for the past 2 years. He'll definitely be someone that I'll be watching in 2024. Really solid player with a lot of upside. Footwork, agility, he's got it all, and really good in post-contact meters as well. Trey Mooney, he'll be someone that I think will take it to that next level and potentially have a breakout year if he does get selected in the 17. And then Morgan Smithies, a lot of people have him getting the 13 over Corey Horsburgh. He will for the first few rounds when Corey Horsburgh is suspended. But other than that, I think that Corey Horsburgh keeps that 13 jersey. He went really well there in 2023. I think that he'll definitely take that 13 jersey back when he gets back, Corey Horsburgh. But Morgan Smithies, he can play in the front row or at lock off the bench to a pretty high click. As far as I'm concerned, from watching little pieces of him in reserve grade, I think he can do that role really well. He's got a fantastic offload game too, Morgan Smithies. So definitely one to watch going into this year. Morgan Smithies, the Pom, coming over from the Super League. Definitely one to watch for the Canberra Raiders. So for the Raiders, the 7 players you need to look out for: Chevy Stewart, KO Weeks, Ethan Strange, Albert Hopewade, Huepa Puru, Trey Mooney, and Morgan Smithies. Now, for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, there's 4 guys that I want you to watch out for. The first one is an obvious one, Tyrone Munro, going to be taking that right wing spot. It'll be between him and Isaiah Tass, but I think that Tyrone Munro will win the spot to start the year because I think Tass is more of a centre than he is a winger. I actually think he could play a decent role off the bench in the back row if they really needed him to, because he's got so much size on him. And he's got great footwork as well. Like, he can run some really solid lines in games as well. So he can play a decent role off the bench, maybe in a back row spot, potentially. Isaiah Tass, a bit of a controversial opinion, but I think he could definitely do that well. But it'll be between him and Tyrone Munro for that wing spot. Isaiah Tass, I think Tyrone Munro gets it. Tyrone Munro can play fullback or on the wing. If you want to go for Tyrone Munro being blooded as the next fullback for South Sydney, you can definitely do that as well. He can start the year in New South Wales Cup and play fullback with maybe Isaiah Tass getting that wing spot. You've also got guys like Isaac Tuiputu Thompson. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I could be totally wrong. But Isaac Thompson as well. could definitely be getting that role on the wing. He's definitely had a fair crack at that role throughout 2023. And Richard Kenner, a lot of guys are forgetting, are in this squad as well. Guys and girls forgetting that Richard Kenner is in this side as well and eligible for that right wing spot. It'll be between those four guys, but the main race will be between Tyrone Munro and Isaiah Tass. You could go for Isaiah Tass if you want Tyrone Munro to be playing fullback in New South Wales Cup, but I think that Tyrone Munro is too good to be sitting in reserve grade. I think he will get that that wing spot on the right wing for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So definitely one to watch, Tyrone Munro. Peter Mamanzalos just got re-signed, the dummy half, Pistol Pete. I think that he will be a smoky for the 14 jersey. If you're preparing for the future, he is your 14. After Damien Cook, he will be the 9. So I'd be starting to bring him in now. I think, you got a guy that is, I believe, 25, 26 years of age in Pistol Pete. You got to have him in the team. You got to have him in the 14 jersey because there's a lot of clubs looking for 9s right now. You think about some clubs looking for 9s. You got Parramatta looking for a main 9. You got the Melbourne Storm looking for a 9 off the bench for Harry Grant. You've got a lot of clubs looking for a 9. Even I would say the Cronulla Sharks looking for a 14-9. And Pistol Pete would be perfect over there as well. So I'd bring him in sooner rather than later. I think Damien Cook's going to get 1-year deals after this contract ends in 2025. I think you'll get only 1-year deals after that because they want to bring in Pistol Pete soon. So definitely one to watch. I think he will get the 14 jersey, but I could be very wrong about that as well because you've got Havili there who's a vet and plays really well, both at hooker or in the front row. You could even have them both off the bench and it would still work out for you. So it depends how you want to really structure your team, but Pistol Pete, definitely one to watch for the Rabbitohs. Tallis Duncan, confirmed. Well, not really confirmed, but a lot of people are saying that he will be the right back rower for the South Sydney Rabbitohs with Keaon Koloamatangi moving over to the left-hand side to create what is a very scary-looking left-hand side for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. You're looking at that left-hand side. It'll be Cody Walker, Keaon, Jack White, and Alex Johnston with Latrell Mitchell roaming down that side as well. Very scary looking left-hand side. And even the right-hand side looks scary as well. Tyrone Munro, Campbell Graham, Lockie Ilias, and Tallis Duncan if he gets that spot as well. If not, he'll definitely play a really decent role off the bench, and he'll be someone that I'll be watching going into the 2024 season for sure because he is a younger version of Cam Murray. He is a spitting image of when Cameron Murray was fresh into the competition for me. So I am very excited to see if Tallis Duncan can get a crack at that spot. And then the last guy I want you to watch is Dean Hawkins. Obviously, if Lockie Ilias doesn't work out this season, they're going to be bringing in Dean Hawkins 100%. Even still, if Cody Walker does get a crack in Origin, which I think is a little bit unlikely, but if he does, Dean Hawkins can come in then. You think about a few other guys in this side that will be getting a crack at Origin potentially. Your Campbell Grahams, your Latrell Mitchells if he's fully fit. There's definitely going to be opportunities for Dane Hawkins to get a crack in this side in 2024. Hopefully he does get a crack potentially in a 14 jersey at some stage during the year as well. I'd love to see him get a spot in this team at some stage, whether that be, due to injury or due to Origin commitments from other players. I'd love to see him get a crack, and he'd definitely be someone that I'll be watching in New South Wales Cup in 2024. Led his side to a grand final last year. Keen to see him and Pistol Pete do the same in 2024. But those are the guys from South Sydney that I need you to watch. Tyrone Munro, Peter Mamanzalos, Pistol Pete, Tallis Duncan, and Dean Hawkins. In the next episode, we'll be going through the Penrith Panthers, the Newcastle Knights, and the Parramatta Reels. Going to be a real jam-packed episode, that one. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube. Make sure you go and follow Big LEZ'S League on Instagram and on TikTok, and subscribe to the podcast, whether you listen on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe and follow Big LEZ'S League because you don't want to miss out on any content we've got coming out during the year. But make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one where we go through the Panthers, the Knights, and the Parramatta Reels.